Alrighty, let's get started. So, hello again, everyone. My name's Chris Dorr. I'm the customer support manager here at vintrace. Today, we're going to be looking at sales orders. So, essentially, how to manage sales orders and enter them. The stock dispatches that go along with that as well. We'll be having a looking at setting up price lists and the actual items that you can sell through vintrace, and then maybe look at a little bit on sale taxes, and obviously some reporting at the end of it. If you've got any questions at all, just pop them through using the Q&A feature. I'll try to get to those as I go along, but if I don't do that, we'll have a little session at the end where I'll just try to rapid fire through everyone's questions. So send them through whenever, and we'll try to get to them as we go. This will be on YouTube as well, so if anyone couldn't make it or you've got to leave, then it will be uploaded a little later on. Alrighty, cool. So let's get started. So I guess the first thing we want to do is, you may have a question of, do I actually have sales orders in my vintrace package? If you are basically on any plan other than the boutique plan, so that's the small estate, the estate, custom crush, enterprise, or sort of any of our legacy plans from a while back, you will definitely have sales orders. To find them, head to the more options down the very bottom left hand corner of vintrace, and you will see a sales order section in here. If you log in and you don't see that, then the problem is likely that your user profile doesn't have the permission to view sales orders. So what you can do is head into this manage system users on the address book tile, and if I open up my own profile here, you'll see that there is, in this list of user permissions, hiding in here somewhere, there is a can manage sales orders. So if you do not have that permission, you cannot see the sales order section. So you'll either need to contact your local administrator of your database, or just give support a call and we can add that permission, and then you can get started putting in your sales orders. Alrighty, cool. So yeah, all the sales order stuff is pretty much within this tile here. There's a number of different places we'll sort of go through, but I guess we're going to start off with a lot of the setup. So before we actually get a sale, and we want to have things configured just so that they kind of work right when it comes to actually putting those sales in and doing that reporting. So the first one we're going to look at is just configuring sales items, and so these will be just the things that you put on a sales order. Now you'll see there's a whole list of codes in my database here. Some of them are bulk wine codes. Some of them are actually stock codes. As you work in vintrace, whether you've got some wine in tank, or whether you're bottling some stock, they'll automatically be created as a sales item. So you don't have to come in here and create every single one. If it's a stock item already, it'll show up on a sales order. So I guess the use of this section is for anything else that you might sell that isn't something you're necessarily tracking stock of. A good example of that is one that I'll set up now. So if we go new item, you'll just need to give it a code. So I'm going to set up a freight item, so we'll charge our customers some freight to ship some stock to them, and you can have that broken up into local freight if it's within your sort of region, or if you've got different rates, you can set it up as different items. I guess the important things are, let's call that a fixed charge. That's not too important, but the important things are the tax state, so whether it actually gets taxed on this particular item or not, and you'll see that on all the other items. So you've got the option of not taxable, or taxable at the price list rate, which we'll get to in a moment. But if this item gets tax on it for whatever reason, whatever type of tax, make sure you select this option. If you're running a sales order and you see that the tax is incorrect, you don't know why, maybe one of the items hasn't got it, the tax applied to it, it'll most likely be this option, hasn't been selected, and it's not actually generating tax. So keep an eye out for that one. And I guess the last thing, there is an account option here. So this is mostly useful for people that are integrating with Xero, or exporting out sales with accounts linked to it. So you can set this up so that when you make a sales order, this is the revenue account that you will go to. So if you are integrating Make sure you select that to whatever freight account you need to. And then on the right hand side, there is an option here for price list configuration. So as you create this freight item, you can actually apply it to the existing price list. So if we add it to our wholesale price list at a rate of say $10, when we save this, we can go look at our price list that'll already be added. You can manually go into each price list and add those items as you go along as well. But if you've got it to a bunch of different price lists, you can sort of do it as you create the item. All right, so that's all I really want to worry about. I'll save that. So that item will now be able to be selected on a sales order. Other examples of items you might set up in here are things like merchandise or sort of any additional fees that you might charge somebody that aren't necessarily a stock item that you're going to track in vintrace, but you do need on the sales order. So they can sort of be added all through this sales item section. If we just jump out for a second and we'll have a look in the winery setup and just have a look at our wine items. So this is where you'll find all your finished goods stock items, so all the various different case formats. And if I just open up one of these, for example, you'll see that each stock item, this is its standard sort of setup, but there is this sales tab here that you may have seen. And this is basically the same as the screen that we just looked at with the freight item. So this will automatically be populated. You can still go in here if you need to change the code that shows on the sales order as opposed to using the same code as the stock item. And you can go through and configure the price list here as well. You'll see that it's got this tax state as not taxable, which we don't want. So I think by default it does select taxable, but if you do need to make changes, there is that sales tab there as well. All right, cool. So that's, I guess, setting up our sales items and our stock items. We'll do a little bit more of that as we kind of go along. But I guess the next one to have a look at while we're in the setup is there will be this tax folder here. And we've got a tax rates within that. So what you want to set up in this section is any tax rates that apply to any of your items when you're actually recording a sale. So you'll see in here, I've just got a basic GST rate, and then I've also got wet and GST, which is specific to Australia, but essentially just open that up. This one's broken up into two components. There's a wet at 29%, and then compounded on top of that is a GST at 10%. So you'll need to go in and set up whatever tax rates apply for wherever you're selling your stock. It might just be as simple as this top one here, where it's just a flat 10% on top of that. So just make sure you set up all the various different tax rates that you need to apply for wherever you're selling into, and then we can actually apply those at a price list or sales order level. Okay, so that's our tax rates, and then the next one is down in the more options again. We've got the configure price list. So this one will be very handy to have set up, and there's a number of ways you can go about this as well. So this price list section will basically be what sort of price each item is sold at. So in my examples here, I've got a couple of different regions, so a couple of different export ones where I might sell them at different prices, and then maybe different tax rates involved in those as well. And then obviously just got a domestic wholesale one that I've included. So go through here and set them up for the different sort of price rates, or you might have one for an individual customer, for example. So that might be included here as well. So I'll just go through and set up a brand new price list. And we'll just call this one sales. All right, so I've got a code. You can use the copy from function here. So if it's pretty much identical to another price list you've got, just pop in the code or select it here. So I could say it's fairly similar to my wholesale, and this will just bring in all the prices that I have on my other wholesale price list. So it's got all of that information there. I can then go through and make adjustments. So if it's a more expensive rate for some of these items, I can adjust the prices there, but otherwise it'll copy over the majority of the detail. We've got a default tax rate, so that's just what we looked at setting up there. I will select my wet plus GST tax rate. You can select whatever applies in whatever region you're selling to. We've got a currency option there, so as you make sales, you can select and it'll display on the sales order in that particular currency. And another important one is a tax policy. So this is where the prices that you're putting down below are inclusive or exclusive of that tax. So if they're inclusive, it'll obviously just use this value and work the tax out from that. Exclusive will pop the tax on top of it. So depending on how you need it to report and function, you'll just need to select the tax policy that suits. Again, we've got a default account. So for those that are integrating the Xero and the like, you can select a revenue account here. So that will then sync over to Xero with that account attached and sort of set it up as the default, which we'll see pretty shortly. And there's also a default sale type. So when you make a sales order, it asks you what type of sale this is. Instead, we can just sort of have it defaulted from the price list. So it's going to save us a few clicks to actually have those options selected. And then there's just a little bit about the payment terms. So it'll basically put how many days the invoice is due, and then any details that you want to put in there, and that'll again print on the sales order. So once we've got the top section all configured, the bottom section is basically just the pricing. You'll see here there's a random assortment of items that I've included. You just go through and click add line, and then you can put in any additional items that you need to sell. So I copied this from my wholesale price list, so it's got all those in there. But if I go add line, it'll hopefully let me put some more in when it loads. And Tony just raised a good point in one of our questions, is why is a tax policy tax exclusive on a retail sales price list? And that's because I'm not paying a whole lot of attention. That should definitely be tax inclusive for our retail. Change that if it lets me. And there's another question there from Catherine as well. Can export sales be set up with Xero rated GST? And absolutely they can. So you would just need to set up a new tax rate. Call it whatever you like, whether it's export tax or something along those lines. And you can just put it as 0%, and then no tax rate should be applied onto that. Alrighty, cool. And yeah, so we're adding additional items down the bottom there. So stock, bulk, wine, or other. Put in your code that you want to sell, and then the price per unit. There is an advanced option here as well. So if you select that, you can override the tax rate. So you might have certain items on a price list that don't follow whatever tax rate you selected. So a great example is non-wine items that don't incur wine-specific taxes that might be in your area. So you can override that and just have a general tax rate in there. That will apply the right tax. So obviously you can go through adding line by line, but there is an option to import and export, which is one of the questions I see there. So if you click the import option, it'll just give you a file to work with. Best is to actually export first to get the file. It'll give you what's currently in there. So you see it's just a list of items and prices, and you can also include that override tax rate. So you can go through adding additional items at the bottom and prices, and then just import that back in there so that you don't have to spend hours clicking add line by add line. You can add all items. That'll give you absolutely everything that's a sales item. You may not want everything on there, so it's probably best just to import for those ones, and then you can work based off that. All right, cool. I think we're good with this retail price list. Excellent. All right, so yeah, we've got our price list configured, and let's move on to the last bit of setup, and we'll actually then almost the last bit of setup, and we'll get some sales in there. So the last thing we're going to look at is just the sales regions and sales region categories. You don't have to use these on each sale, but it's just a little bit handy for reports when it gets to that sort of end of it. So I've already pre-configured a bunch here, but essentially the way I'm structuring it, and you can do it different. You could use this for a whole different purpose, but for my sales regions, I've set one up as Asia, I've got Europe, I've got interstate, and I've got local. And then the level above that is there's a category to it. So if I just open up Europe, for example, you'll see that there's a category which I've just called export. And it's also linking to a default price listing. You can do that with an account as well. And then you'll see, for example, my interstate sales, that goes into a domestic category. So I can run a report based on the region being whether it's interstate or local, or I can run it on the category, which will show me whether it's domestic or export. So if you're trying to get those levels of sales, you can sort of set them up as sales regions, and then the region categories, which is the level above that, just to make things a little bit easier. All right, I think this is the very last bit of setup, and we'll be into creating a sales order. And the last bit is just in the address book. This is where you want to have all your customers set up. I've got a couple of random ones I've put in here. You can set these up as you're going along on a sales order. Sorry, you can add them as you're actually entering the sales. If we just open up wine buyers here, you see it just flags as a customer. But if you head into the advanced option, this one is something I recommend you all do because it'll save you a lot of time. But if you go through each customer, there is a price list and a sales region here as well. It's worthwhile if a certain customer is always using the one price list. So if it's a distributor or something like that as their own price list, head into this section and actually set that up so that you don't have to go in on every sales order that you're doing and select the customer, then select the price list, and then also select things like the sales type. This will do it all. So you can link it. I will say this is a wholesale customer. And we can say that's local sales. So go through, set those up. That'll just give it a little bit of less clicking when it actually comes to writing up those sales orders. Obviously, you might have a lot of customers. So instead of going one by one through each of these, in the address book, you can import and export those options. So if you export out a list of your current customers in the address book, you'll see that there is somewhere in here. Maybe I've lied, it's not in that export. Must be in the other one. There we are. So it should be in here. So this will export everyone that we were just looking at. And you'll see towards the end there's just a price list field and a sales region field. So you can go through, fill all those in for each customer, and then just import it back into vintrace using this import option. So just make sure you use this export organization so that you see those fields, and then you can upload it. Save a bit of clicking when it comes to the actual sales orders. Alrighty, cool. So we've done a fair bit of setup now. So hopefully that'll make our life a bit easier when we get to the sales orders itself. And yeah, let's just jump straight in. So we'll go to the managed sales orders, and this will give you this console here, which will list out obviously all the sales orders that you put in. I think by default it looks back to the start of the last month to give you those sales. There's obviously a range of filters at the top. So if you're looking for something in particular, you can go by customer or region to kind of find those. And obviously open up existing sales there and have a look. All right, let's just get into a new sales order. So this is our new sales order screen. It's quite a bit of info that you have to fill in to sort of get it through and over the line. Obviously, the first one here is just the customer. As I mentioned, you can just click the little plus and add a customer as you go along. Alternatively, you can have them sort of already pre-set up. All right, so I'll select my wine buyers here. And once that's done, you'll see it's already selected my price list as wholesale and that sales region as local sales. And that's also done that sale type. So I don't have to fill all that in. If none of that's linked on the customer, you're going to have to go through and select all those three. And that's a bunch of clicks and typing that you could have saved. So I'd highly recommend doing that. All right, so that would obviously bring up phone numbers and addresses if I had that configured on my customer, but I do not. So then I guess the last few things on the configuration side are just any of these descriptions, references, notes, that kind of stuff that you might need to fill in. It'll have the order date there sort of filled in as of today. And there's also a status here. So by default, they'll come up as new. There is an approved, paid, and payment in progress. Once they're approved, vintrace will sort of lock you out of them. We'll have a look at that in a moment. What that'll do for those syncing over to zero, it does actually impact what status it goes to zero as well. And after a certain point, we can't sync those any further, but obviously for now, it'll definitely be a new sales order. And we've got a fulfillment state here, which we can go through in a moment when we actually start to dispatch this stock out. Okay, so I'm happy with everything I got at the top. Let's actually sell something. So hit add line and you'll obviously get a line added in there. It'll then ask you for the type of item. So there is stock, which will be all our stock items, finished goods, that kind of thing. General, so that'll be that freight item I set up earlier, basically anything that you're not really tracking stock of. There's an ad hoc option, just sort of a once-off thing. You don't really want to add it as an item. You can select ad hoc. And the last one is bulk wine. So if you've got some wine in tank that you're selling, you can do it through a sales order as well. And that's what we'll start with for this one. So with the bulk wine, it is then just selecting a batch code. Should have prepared one earlier, but we'll see if I pick something that's in a tank. I'll just double check to make your life easier. So I'm going to go for this batch code. Cool, so put your batch code in there. If it's on the price list already, it will bring in a unit price automatically. If not, you can just type it in. So that'll be then $3 per litre that I'm selling that at. And you'll see that you get a little warning symbol here. And this is just saying you haven't got this on the price list now. When we actually save this sales order, it'll add $3 per litre for this bulk wine. So theoretically, you could leave your price list empty and just start selling, and it will populate automatically with whatever you entered on the price on the sales order. All right, so I'll put it $3 per litre, and then obviously the quantity ordered, it'll tell you what the unit is. So in this case, it's obviously litres. If it's a stock item, it'll be cases or bottles, so you can work with that. And we've also got a discount here, so you can discount that by however many dollars that you need to, and that should work out a subtotal. We've obviously got the account selected, so that was, I think, I defaulted that from my price list, but if it needs to change per line, you can go through and adjust that there. And obviously the tax rate is what I had as my default as well. If you realize that this is incorrect, you can change it here as well. So if it is an item that, you know, GST only, for example, you can select that here. Obviously, we could have done that on the price list with the advanced option. Cool, and then that'll work out a total tax amount. And in this case, there's a total there. So that's basically our subtotal plus the tax all in there. And down the bottom, you'll get a summary of that. So obviously it's just repeating most of this, but it'll give you the individual tax amounts and then a total towards the bottom. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to sell 2,000 litres of this particular wine to this customer. Once you're kind of happy with that, we can save. There is a save and email and a save and print option. I'll go save and print so we can have a quick look at our printed out invoice. So this will be missing a little bit of information that I didn't pop in, but obviously at the top you can have your own logo, your address and phone number and all that kind of detail should be populated in there. And then we've got the customer information. Again, that'll be address details that I left out. And then, yeah, it'll go into the details of that invoice. So it's got my code and a description, and then obviously all the values that I popped on that. So it prints out all the taxes and that kind of stuff. And then down the bottom is the payment due date. So I think the price list I had said 14 days from the date of the invoice, which 29th is 14 days from today. So that's just popped in there. There is a section to include bank account details and the like, which I haven't done. So I'll try to remember to do that. And that will just print down the bottom here. And the payment term details as well. I haven't filled that in, but that will be just below. So if you've got any text that you need to include for a customer, that can be filled in and pop down the bottom. All right, so yeah, now we'll see in our sales order console, it's VSO10, which is the next sales order number, and then it's got all the other information there. So that's sitting there ready to go. Eventually, the wine will actually be dispatched out of the winery. So there's a number of ways to do that. You can do it through just a normal work order and a bulk dispatch, and that'll have an option to put in the sales order number, or you can just open up this sales order. And down the bottom left, you've got the bulk dispatch operation. And you'll also note just at the moment, the fulfillment state is approved to send. So it hasn't actually been dispatched yet. Otherwise, it would say fully sent. So if we go to bulk dispatch, this will just bring up the standard bulk dispatch screen. You'll see it's got the sales order number linked to it, our customer and our batch code filled in, and then obviously the 2,000 litres that we said we were going to sell. So at this point, you can go through and fill it in and just save it if the wine's already been dispatched and complete it that way. Or you can use the scheduling mode down the bottom left. So if you need a work order for the team to actually handle this dispatch, click the scheduling mode and go through and actually save that to a work order. That'll go in the jobs console, which can then be sort of handled that way. I'll just actually go through and do that dispatch. So I don't even have 2,000 litres of this wine, but we'll make do. We'll call that a bulk sale, so we'll need a dispatch type. You can fill in obviously any of the other dispatch information. Just take a bit of a gain. All right, cool, and then I'll take our 2,000 litres out. So once we save this dispatch, go through all the warnings. You get a bill of lading declaration. This happens anytime you dispatch wine or stock. It'll come up here, and you can print that out and send that through to customers or whoever needs that. You can include, if it's a bulk wine, analysis, additives, composition, that kind of stuff. So there's plenty of different options there to include. I'll just print one out so we can take a quick look. And yeah, you just get something like this, all the address details, stock codes and that kind of thing. So if you are sending some paperwork along, this is probably the best one for it. And there's sections down there for signatures, so that along with the one. All right, so if we just open up this sales order one last time, you'll just see the fulfillment now is fully sent, and the fulfillment date is today, so 15th to the 9th. So stock is obviously all gone. The only other thing is you can update the status to approved. Probably should have approved it before we sent it, but mark that as approved, and you can then put in an invoice date as well to say that's an approved sale. If we are to go back into this now that it is approved, you'll see it's kind of all grayed out. We can't make changes to it. Obviously, it's approved and done. If you do realise that you've made a mistake, you can still edit the status back to new and then save it and come back into it. So it does give you that ability if things do go wrong. Okay, so that's I guess our first sale. We'll quickly do another one as well. Customer. So you see here, I picked vintrace wines. None of this stuff's filled in here, so I actually now have to pick a sales price list, a sales type, a sales region. So go through and do that. We'll call that an export sale. So this time I'm going to sell some stock items. So you pick stock and then just select whichever stock that you're going to send out. I'll sell some Chardonnay there. Again, this is not on my price list. I haven't configured it all, but you can include the unit price. And you'll see here that I've obviously got this price list in euros. It'll display just next to the price list up here, and obviously down the bottom there as well. 26 packs. I obviously haven't again put a tax rate in as my default on the price list, so you'll kind of find as you're going along, things will be missing, and you can then go back into your price list and make it a little bit easier to include some of that stuff. So I'll call this one an export. No tax on top of it, so it'll just give you the 0 there. And then we can save and print. And there we are. So I think this is a question from more about how do you show. We'll get back to that one. Sorry, I realize I'm talking about dollars on both, but if you are needing different currencies, then you'll see that euros are displayed there. Obviously, if it's dollars, it's a slightly different case because that's used everywhere. But here's our invoice for that one. So now that we've got that in, it's a slightly different step with, I guess, the stock items as opposed to the bulk wine items. You can just click this stock dispatch button, and it's just a slightly different screen here. So it's the stock dispatch operation instead. Really, all we need to do is date and time, and then it's just selecting which location the stock is coming from. So if you've got your stock in multiple warehouses, you can select using our little forklift here where we're taking it from. In this particular case, I've only got stock in my finished goods area, so that's where it's going to assume it's coming from, but you can adjust that if you've got it across several areas. So again, if we save that, that'll dispatch our stock out and give us that bill of lading option again if we need it. And that stock will be dispatched. One last quick sales order, I'll just copy. So if you have a sort of recurring sale, similar one, there is an options menu here, and you can click copy, and that'll just grab the exact same details. So it's a brand new sales order, but using the same stock item and everything. And the reason I'm doing this is there is a customer pickup option as well. So if you're doing putting maybe solid oil sales through or some retail sales through, you can click this customer pickup option and select the location that that stock was taken out of. So if at the point of sale you're physically handing the stock over, instead of having to go back through that dispatch option, you can just use this customer pickup. And I think as long as you've said the sale is approved, it'll take the stock out of this particular location. Invoice dates. And you'll see there's completed a dispatch up the top there. So that stock is now already dispatched out directly from doing the sales order. So if it's stock out the door straight away, you can do it with that option. All right. So obviously we've put a couple of sales in, but you may be, selling through another point of sale system or elsewhere, and you want to actually get those sales into vintrace for the stock management side of it. So one option we do have is you can use this import functionality just in here. So what this will allow you to do is import a file, a CSV file of your sales order records from wherever you've got them. You can download the headers here, which will give you a sample file or sort of the format that needed to be used to get them into vintrace. So obviously things like the customer, the sales type, the item codes, obviously all the price and quantities and that kind of thing. So If you are tracking sales elsewhere that need to go into vintrace, you can use this tool. Once you've got your file sort of filled in, you can then go to upload your file here. I prepared one earlier. So I call my file. Point of sale orders. So you can upload that into here. And then when you go import sales orders, it'll just ask you to map certain things. So you might be lucky enough that you can export straight out of your other system and maybe just swap around. So the column names might not match, but you can map them to vintrace's fields. I've conveniently got mine perfect, so it'll just work. But if yours, says something different to sales type, you can map that to this particular field, and then you can save that mapping. So you only have to do it once the first time, basically, and then if we click continue, that successfully imported 2 sales orders because I had that 2 sales orders in my file. And if we just hit search, you'll see it's added sales order 13 and 14. It does include a note here just to say that it's come through from point of sale import. So you'll get all that stock dispatched and sales totals included from those. So if you're tracking sales elsewhere, then it's definitely worthwhile to use that import feature. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to do some quick refunds through our refund console. We'll look at a little bit of sales reporting, and then I'll try to get through some of these questions that I haven't already addressed. So if you've got any more, then please send them through. Yeah, so the last one in this sales section that we haven't looked at is just a refunds console. So if for whatever reason stock needs to be returned, you can do that through here. So pretty much the same setup as the sales order console, but if you go new refund, it'll just ask you for the sales order that you're actually refunding, and it'll need to be an approved sale. So it's only going to filter and show me what's approved. Let's just go this one here. So it will just give you all the details about that original sales order, and you can say how much stock is actually going to be returned, whether it's all of it or some of it. So we'll say it's all 3. It'll tell you how much was actually put there. You can also select return all, and that'll create a credit there. And then you just need to select where you're actually going to return that stock to, so which location. And then you can save and print, or just save that as approved. That'll basically just return the stock back in, obviously give you a credit there as well. So if for whatever reason you need to record refunds, there is a refund console for that purpose, and that'll again keep your stock all in line. So use that if needed. All right, let's have a look at some sales reporting. So there are a couple of different options. The first one we'll actually look at is just in the sales order console itself. So what you can do is use these formats here. So under the little PDF drop down, there's a few different formats. So there's MYOB, QuickBooks, Xero, and then just a VinX2 CSV. So if you are importing these into another system, you can use these files, but they're also quite detailed. So if you pick one of the last 2, I think they're generally the most detailed, and you can actually then select which sales orders you need in that list and go to options and print. And what this will do is it'll give us a spreadsheet with pretty much all the detail listed on those sales orders. So line by line. Of course, I've done it. Yeah, print it all out the PDF. So if you want to print invoices in bulk, you can do it through that as well. But this will give you all the orders in a spreadsheet. So customers and price lists and that kind of stuff are in there. And if we head over, we've obviously got all our stock items, values. It will give you the addresses of those customers as well. All the tax amounts are in there too. So if you're needing to do some uploading to another system, or just some reporting and analysis of that data on your own, this is probably one of the better ones because it has all the information line by line that you can then kind of work with in a fairly nice file. So that's, I guess, the first of the reports, but we do have reports console over here. We do have a sales section down the bottom, so there's a few different options you can work with. Things like just a PDF for just a list of sales and totals. There is a tax report, and for the Australians, there is a retail wet tax report, which will just work out the wet amount on all your retail sales based off different calculations. But the most useful one is probably this sales summary report. So this will give you all your sales recorded. You can obviously filter again by a range of things, but the useful part is, I guess, this group by option. So depending on how you need to see your data, you can use this here, whether it's by those regions that we looked at, or by the individual item or customer. You can really choose whatever you want to see. Let's just do it by the item. And this will give us a spreadsheet that looks something like this. So it's going by item. It'll break it up into the different currencies as well, because they're not quite comparable. So this top section is just the Australian dollar sales, and then there's that one that I sold in euros down the bottom. And then it just goes into categories as well, but you'll see here, this is a bulk wine sale up the top that I did before. So 2,000 litres, it'll have the total sales amount, the exclusive of tax amount, and then just the taxes broken down in here as well. It'll also work out the cost of goods of that particular item. So at the point of dispatch, obviously the bulk wine there was worth $4,500, and it kind of works out a profit based off that. So you can use it to track that kind of information. And obviously volumes and quantities, volume will be down here as well. So for example, the 26 packs I've got, it'll work out the volume of wine there. So if you need to sort of report based on the literage of sold wine, you can use this column to do that as well. And it does actually have grand totals down the bottom there for all of those columns. The last section, this cost certainty score, really what that's just telling you is, has this stock been dispatched? So when you see the A there and the order fulfillment, that's just saying, we did dispatch this bulk wine. So we can be pretty certain that the cost there is correct. Whereas, for example, the next one down, we didn't actually dispatch this stock. So it's telling me that it's using the unit cost at the date of the sales order. So it's just looking at this particular item and saying what was the cost on that date, and getting that value there. So when you dispatch the stock, it may change for whatever reason. So it's obviously not as certain as that one. So if you are running this report, just keep an eye on that column so you can kind of know if you have dispatched stock or not. You can also kind of report based on the fulfillment stat as well. So yeah, I guess that's the sales summary. I've done that by item, but it's definitely worthwhile to do that by customer or region, depending on how you need to report on things. And that will kind of give you some extra info. Cool. So I guess, yeah, worthwhile having a look at all those different reports and seeing what you can find. I did as well set up a dashboard for my liking, just with some of the sales order dashlets. If you haven't really had a look at this too much, it's worthwhile jumping in here. I think these ones are all system default ones, so you should all have access to it. So all you need to do is just jump into the dashboard, click the plus under new dashlet, and there is a sales section with a couple in there that you can have a look at. In this case, that's showing me revenue by customer, use sales orders, so you'll be able to sort of see those. And for any of the table dashlets, you can download those to a spreadsheet as well. This one just lists all of our sales orders, and then I've got one here that actually shows sales orders that we haven't dispatched yet. So ideally, this should be blank. That means you've dispatched everything, but obviously if something gets missed, this is a good way to sort of work through and have a look. Obviously, there's a bit of detail into that, so you might need to download that and take a look, but you can certainly make sure everything gets dispatched that way. Cool. So that is everything I had planned for. So I'm going to go through questions that I hopefully haven't answered already, which looks like there's a few. If you've got any more, send them through to the questions feature. I see there's some in the chat. I'll go through those as well. But if you've got any more, send them through, and I'm just going to rattle through them all. All right. So I've got one here. Do the notes on the sales order copy through to zero as a text line? No, I don't think so. I think the notes on a sales order, this section here, that's more internal notes that's used. I think you may be able to get the reference synced through to zero, but it doesn't actually include anything as a line item unless you put it as a sales order, sort of in this section down the bottom. We've got another one. Can you see how much stock is remaining in the item you're invoicing from the sales order screen, or a low stock, out of stock warning? It does give you a warning when you go to save, I believe. I can double check this one, but I think if you try to save it and you don't have enough stock, you'll get a warning. It'll definitely give you one if you try to schedule the stock dispatch, and it'll know that you don't have enough stock. You'll also be able to see, if I just do an example, we'll just copy from one of these. Just throw a couple of nines in front of that. So if you were to go into stock dispatch, you will get this warning here saying that you don't have enough stock. It'll tell you the item, what you've ordered, and what's available. It will, but it's kind of an overall thing. So if you are trying to buy a warehouse, it won't work that way, but it definitely should probably hear that you don't have enough stock. Question from Jane: can the discount be a percentage and not a dollar value? It's can. I think if you've got the connection integrated to zero, it will be a percentage, just because that's the way zero works. They have it in percentage. I think there may be a setting to switch between the two if you don't have that integrated, but by default it is dollar amount or whatever currency you're working in. Okay, is there a way to make the sales order items box bigger so you can see all the lines in one view? There isn't a way to make that box bigger. It's probably something that we need to look into, so I'll pass it on to the team to address. But yeah, certainly you can only fit about 4 items in there. For some of the bigger ones, it does take a bit of scrolling, so I'll bring that up with the team. Another good one here: can a stock location be set up as a default? So yes, it can. If you're working with the customer pickup option, you'll see as soon as I click that, there is a storage area that I can save as my default for that customer pickup option. So anytime I use that, whatever the storage area selected will be our default. Outside of that, there is also in our setup section under general and defaults, there is a system-wide default setting. So there's this dispatch area, and it's just set as a generic dispatch option. That'll be where it's assumed to be taken out of. So if you were to schedule a work order or a sales order, you'll be able to see it's coming out of this particular location, unless you specify otherwise on a work order. It's going to assume it's coming out of this dispatch area here. Okay, there's a question from Tony. What templates are available for the tax invoice, i.e. to include ship to details on the invoice? Can we add notes to the invoice? Yeah, so I guess with the invoices, they can be customized. It has to be done by, I guess, the support team here. And depending on the number of changes, we may charge for it, because it can be a bit of work to sort of do that. So if you do want any changes made, it's best to just send us an email through the support desk with kind of what your hoping to include. For things like notes on the invoice, we can definitely include those in there. So if it's something like that, that's no problems. But yeah, I guess it really depends on the changes. So if anyone does have any requests, just send that through to the support desk, and we'll see what we can do. Another question from Jane: where do you put the delivery instructions? That is probably best to have them on the. I guess there isn't really a spot for delivery instructions to be included. You could potentially do it through the work order. So if you were to schedule the dispatch, there is a section in here for shipping info that you can include, and then that'll give you an actual printed work order. It won't be the same as the invoice. It'll be a completely separate document. People use it for picking slips and the like, but you can put all the shipping information on this. I may as well generate one while we're on it. So this will give you a work order to dispatch the stock. That, so you can get something like this, and then if you just include notes on that work order section, this will include obviously all the transport information as well if you include it. So that's probably the better one. If there isn't any way, I guess, outside having the notes included on your invoice to actually show delivery instructions. Once you've updated a stock dispatch, where do you go to easily see both the VSO and TWL numbers? I think you can just open these up, I hope. Which one did I just do? So I think you can see them in here with the sales order number, and if you schedule the task, there should be a work order in there with the number on that. I'm not sure if there's any particular reports for it, but you can certainly check this scheduled task. I think the other option is you could probably run from the jobs console. Just see if this does the job. So you can download a list of dispatch work orders. I don't know if it's going to tell me the sales order number in here. No, that's just going to be a list of dispatches. So it's probably best just directly on the sales order itself. I'll have a look and see if there's any other options for that one. Okay, cool. I'll just jump over to our chat sections. With the payment terms, can it be made a little bit more flexible? For example, 60 days, 90 days, etc. I think the payment terms are sort of in stone a little bit. Let me just jump in. So you can, I guess, pick whatever days you like there. So 14, I think, is just what I've selected. You can pick as many days as you like. It is kind of restricted, I guess, to these three settings of days after invoice or on the specific day in this month or the next month. But you can certainly pick as many days as you like there to work from. Can you import items and price lists? Yes, you can. Importing price list just through this section we looked at a little bit earlier. Easiest is just to export the file and then import those prices. In terms of importing items, there isn't an option for sales items, but you're most likely going to be importing, I guess, stock items to sell. So if you haven't got those already set up, there is an import-export on each of the different sale stock items. You just need to go through that same process, put in all the codes, and then that'll have them available to sell from. Another one from Adam. If your package stock item is set up as 12 packs, can you sell as bottles? No, you can't. You can only sell as a whole unit. So if it's a 6-pack or 12-pack, you can only sell one of those. It won't let you do part of a case. So what you'd need to do is have a separate stock item set up for a bottle, and then through your bill of materials, you can link it to break down into those single bottles and sell those individual bottles. We've probably best to watch one of our inventory and bottling webinars for that, which should go through the disassemble process that you need to follow for that one. Can we record sales reps and commissions on sales? Technically, no, we don't have that ability, but the sales regions is something that I've seen other people use, and they'll just put the salesperson in there, the sales rep, instead of a region, and then that way you can run reports on who sold what. There's nothing to, I guess, calculate any commissions from that, however, so you might just need to use this, and then however you've got your commission structured, you can get that out of a report. The next one, can you have stock sent from different locations and warehouses? Will vintrace warn if there's not enough stock to fill an order? Yes, so you can send from different stock locations. So again, in that stock dispatch option, if it's on the one order, you can certainly go through and just select it. It'll give you multiple options. You just need to click outline, and 10 cases from one area, 10 cases from another. It can be different per item as well. So you can go through and do that. It'll only give you a warning if you don't have enough stock overall. So if you try to sell 1,000 cases and you've only got 100, it'll give you a warning. But if you've got enough in one location to sort of cover in another, that's where it won't tell you. We'll give you a warning for that. All right, another question. Is all reporting just exported to Excel? Is there a reporting dashboard at all? Most of them are exported to Excel. There was obviously the dashboard I jumped on a little bit earlier. Again, they're exported to Excel. We can configure some certain dashboards if you like. So yeah, that's probably all we have in terms of that dashboard. All right, we've got a couple more. Sometimes there are difference of GST on tax invoice between Xero and vintrace. How to deal with this? That one might be best if you can send through a request to the support team, just so that we can check that out, maybe with some screenshots. There's potentially some configuration issues there that it should definitely match up. So if you could just send us an email on that, we can have a look. Darren. Okay, yeah, so I guess the question earlier from Darren about the sales order and TWL numbers appearing, it looks like that only appears when you haven't updated the work order. So I will take a look at that one and let you know. And then one last one, I think, from Lily. If you have reserved stock, will this ping up the not enough stock? Yes, so if you have reserved stock, and by reserved stock, if you put it on a sales order, you will be able to see that you've got some committed, which we haven't really looked at. So I'll just take a quick look and see one of these items. So for example, this is one of the items I was working with. I'll just bring it up. We're in luck. So you can look at the stock item overview, and in this distribution section, you'll see that there's a committed section here. So if you've got a sales order for this item, it will show up in this committed section, and then anytime you make another sale, it takes that into account. So it's actually looking at the available number when you're making sales. So if you do, commit 100 of these, you'll only have 82 available to work with. And if you're looking at this section and not sure where that number comes from, you can click this tasks tab. This will list out all the sales orders that you do have, so that and you can work out, where your stock's going. You can also go through and complete your dispatches and the like from here. All right, cool. I think I've gone through the majority of the questions. I'll follow up on a couple of them if I haven't answered them, but if there's any last questions, now's your chance to send those through. But otherwise, as earlier mentioned, this will be on YouTube hopefully pretty quickly, and you'll get some emails about that as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and I'll hang around for a couple of minutes now just to answer any last questions, but that ought to do it otherwise.